Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Unbound. This week I'm back in the UK. I just flew back into the UK yesterday morning, and I am delighted to be joined by Jojo Fraser. Jojo is an author. She's a podcast host. She's got a podcast. She's a speaker, all around mental health and helping people to get their mojo back. And Jojo and I share a publisher, That Guy's House. We've both published our books with That Guy's House, but we've never actually kind of spoken face to face, as it were, until today. So it's really lovely to have this conversation with you, Jojo, and see what comes up from it.
I'm excited. I'm open.
Exactly. And it's almost usually, or quite often when I'm speaking to people on Unbound, I have connected with them before and often I know them quite well. So I'm really excited to kind of dive in and see what alchemy comes out of our conversation. So Jojo, normally I start these conversations, obviously the theme of all my work is being unbound and being your fullest, freest self. And I'm really curious to know if there's a time in your life that comes to mind where you have felt particularly bound in the past, so really restricted and limited.
I would say there's always, that point could come up any time because something could happen in the day where you feel restricted because of a person, you don't want to offend them, or you're in a role at work. So I think, it could come up any time, but I do write in my book in chapter 5 about a specific time in my life where I needed to seek clarity. And it was good timing because I had a flight booked to Hong Kong and then Thailand. So I was going to have a lot of time on the beach, which is an amazing place to seek clarity. And I didn't really, I think I was a bit blinded by everything. You know, when friends can see things, but you can't really see, and then it hits you, this light bulb moment. So I was in a relationship, and I remember when I was at the airport, I wasn't feeling those kind of real emotions when I was leaving him. And we had this plan, we'd set up this company that I didn't really want to set up, but it was more his dream than mine. So I was just going along with it, quite a laid back person, but you need to watch that sometimes because when you're laid back with certain things, those that shout the loudest, you can get sucked along to things that perhaps you don't want to do, that don't feel authentic to you, and you perhaps lack passion. So taking that flight was one of the best things because just to have that space to really figure out, well, what do I want? And what's actually going to serve me, and what's a limiting belief. So I just had this light bulb moment on the beach in Thailand that I had to change the way my life was going. I just had to make steps, and it was scary because I was going to hurt people, B, it was a risk, like what would life be like out of this relationship, financially, if I didn't take this really attractive role that would set me up, how is life going to pan out financially? And you just have these fears, don't you? But it wasn't right. So I just had to take the risk and go, actually, no, this isn't the right path. Let's just be brave.
Yeah. And, that sounds like it must have taken a huge amount of bravery, actually, because there were lots of different layers there, like the relationship and the business, all of these different layers of things that you were deciding, no, this is not right for me. And I'm going to choose to do something different. So how was it when you got back from Thailand and you actually had to kind of communicate these decisions that you'd make? What was that like for you?
So I decided I was going to stay the full year, and just have a bit more time to figure it out. So that was a bit of a change. But when I got back, actually, the ex got in touch and he said, I'm glad you made that decision because seeing you now, you're so much happier and you're in a job that you absolutely love. You just seem in a much better place, which I thought was actually quite gracious after, because when you break up with someone, it really does impact the ego, right? It's a real crush. And we can react differently, and it's a learning process. You may think back to a time in the past where you were hurt, your ego was bruised, and you didn't react the way you wanted to. And I'm sure he was I'm sorry for the way I acted, and actually it's worked out best for you. So it was just this feeling of, yes, I did the right thing, I took a risk, it was a brave thing to do, but that wasn't the path that my life should have gone in. I just had to really follow that gut feeling.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. Actually, you talk about your ex there. After a period of time, he was able to go, okay, like, I'm really glad you made that decision. Obviously, he didn't feel like that at the time when you made it and communicated it. And this is the thing, we can kind of feel, okay, you want to let something go in your life, whatever it is, and the people around you may not get that at the time when you're making the decision, and you can kind of receive a lot of negative feedback, or people going, oh my goodness, what are you doing? So, but if you've got the courage to kind of move through that and stick with your convictions, then that can be really positive for people later down the line, can't it? They can actually look back and go, oh, okay, I can see why you did that. And maybe that positively impacted him and other people in your life as well through you making those decisions.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because as someone who loves people, I don't like hurting people, and I don't like bruising people's ego. But over time, I've learned that the ego is just this thing that we need to try and silence a bit more. And when we do that, we're able to really hone in on and what we want and what's true and real to us.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you talk about the ego, I think the inner good girl, I talk about the inner good girl, this part of us that wants to get it right and please others. She's very ego driven. She really kind of sees herself in terms of how other people perceive her. And I should imagine, she would be the one going, oh no, don't rock the boat. Everything's kind of okay. Just kind of carry on, and it'll be fine. Where it sounds like, you were really listening to your unbound self there and going, no, I know that I've got to do this for myself. And I'm wondering, what was the impact of making that decision, Jojo? How's that kind of, yeah.
Just that feeling of freedom. Like, I am speaking my truth. I'm doing what I want to do. I am staying true to my values. And I guess one of the things for me was passion. I think in the relationship I'd been in, his values were different. He wanted to make a lot of money, which there's nothing wrong with that. I like nice things. I like quality items. I like holidays. I like freedom. But for me, I've got to be doing something I'm passionate about, something that really makes a difference to other people as well. So I just didn't sit right. So I guess that opened up the door for me to do things that really were closer to my purpose and how I wanted to spend my time. And I think when you figure that out, then you're a lot happier. You've got more energy because you know that your actions are going to create the kind of results that you want. And I knew that it was more than just having, a big house or whatever, you want to spend your money on. There was a lot more to that.
Yeah. And that, you talk about, mental health a lot, and that's something that can really impact on our mental health, isn't it? When we're not living our purpose, when we're not truly allowing ourselves to do the things we're passionate about, those are the times where everything can look great from the outside. Yet you might have a great job or a great business, like making good money, be in a good relationship. Everyone, sees that from the outside. But inside, we can be really struggling when we're not allowing ourselves to live on purpose.
Yeah, it's so key. And I speak to people who go on to be, high status roles like lawyers, doctors, because that's what they think their family want or what they feel they should do. And perhaps they've got another dream. And I was interviewing an ex-lawyer yesterday, and it was a fascinating conversation about, she just had this light bulb moment. I'm not in the right role. and I'm going to go and pursue this completely different dream. And she's doing amazingly well, phenomenally well, and she is just so happy. You can see it in her eyes. I always say that you can see, I see people. You know, we're all energy, right? And I feel people and I get them. And I have this thing where I just know if someone's following their purpose. I can, you know, you can see it in their eyes. You can tell. You can tell if someone's got barriers up as well. It's very clear. So I'm all about energy.
Yeah. So how did you come to that place then, Jojo? How did you come to be doing what you are now? Tell us a little bit more about your journey there.
Yeah, because I was in another role, which was really great fun and I loved it. But then it got to a point where I wasn't growing anymore. And then I decided that I just got married and I really had this overwhelming urge to start a family. And people were saying, no, it's so hard to be married for longer and you don't understand. And I said, I don't care. I want to do this. I just really wanted to be a mum so much. So it was a bit tense because Hubs was like, well, we just got married. And I was, no, I really want to just try and see what happens. He was like, all right, okay. But when I said I want to try, I mean, he didn't stand a chance. I had the ovulation sticks. I kind of relaxed, try and see what happens. It was like, if this is going to happen, it's going to happen. So when I had Bonnie, that really changed me. I looked at the world in a slightly different way, through a different lens. Really wanted to keep her safe, but also really wanted to have more of a legacy for her and to be a better person, to be a better role model for the sort of really just learn from my mistakes and teach, be able to inspire people not to make them, or when they do make them, not to be so hard on themselves. So I started just blogging when Bonnie was getting close to 2 years old, just blogging about issues that I struggled with. So people were writing saying, oh, it's so nice to have that honesty because it's this perfect picture online, and it's really refreshing to just the fact you're being so truthful about your experience. And of course there was gushy moments, but it's really, really hard. So I think learning about that. And then when my dad was diagnosed with severe depression, I was really, really in tune with how much stigma there was. Now, this is a good 4 years ago. 4.5 odd years ago. And it was a really awful time, probably one of the hardest things that we've ever been through as a family, definitely. And so just learning through that and starting to research and talk openly about mental health and our minds really just changed my life. And I've never looked back, just to be able to make a difference in that field. And I think there's been a lot of progress in the past 4 years. I see the stigma is being crushed. There's still a lot of critical things out there, though. You know, journalists saying, well, people are just selling their story, which can be really damaging when we need people to speak openly about their minds. So for me, I just really wanted to make it, to normalize it and make it just a normal conversation that we would have. Like, yeah, I'm feeling really anxious today. My mind's a bit wired, but that's okay. Rather than trying to fight it, just go, well, I'm actually having a bad day. It could be my hormones, or looking into natural things that I can do and actually looking to the family history and working out where I've picked up these limiting beliefs or where I've picked up anxiety and why, and understanding where it's came from and how we can change these stories that we make up over the years, and to help other people through my content to do that, to help people to look back and think, right, where have I picked this up? What can I do? What's holding me back from being in that happy place? Mojo, I call it, because it rhymes with my name. But how can I get my energy back? How can I spend my days in more of the mojo state than, you know, if you're deeply unhappy about something, or even if you just got this, I'm not too sure. I want to help people get to that happiness, get some of that back. You know, do what I can.
Fantastic. And I want to talk some more about kind of the mojo state and how, you know, we can spend more time in the mojo state. But I want to go back, you know, I just think it's amazing when you talk about like your dad being diagnosed with depression like 4 years ago. It's a relatively short amount of time, isn't it? And the way things have changed within that amount of time, you know, a lot more people are out there talking about mental health and being more open around it, which is so key. And I'm just thinking, you know, I think one of the things that can send people into a spiral of like a downward spiral of poor mental health is when you feel like you can't talk to anyone about it, or you've still got to be presenting this perfect image. It's so damaging. And in terms of social media, like, I know you're really passionate about just sharing openly online and, you know, talking about how it really is, the good and the kind of bad times as well. Have you seen a shift there online, or do you feel there's more to be done, more people, you know, to have more people kind of sharing authentically and openly?
Yeah, there's a lot more work to be done. There's definitely been a shift. People are sharing more, but there's a lot. I think Prince William had approached a few celebrities to take part in a mental health campaign, and he was turned down by all of them because of the stigma and the fear that what that could do. And that's a real shame. But obviously, people are judgmental, and there is a lot of judgment out there, and there's still quite a lot of ignorance around mental health, and people just pull themselves together. And also, a lot of just take these pills and that'll make you feel better. Whereas some people really want to try and, you know, I've just finished the mindfulness course, and we were chatting at the end about, you know, if people could have access to this sort of stuff to try and deal with their issues, because if you just leave it and it builds, I mean, there's stigma even about going for therapy, whereas in America, most people have a therapist. If you leave it to the point, that's it. People are leaving it to the point where they hit rock bottom. And I remember my dad, when he was struggling, he was really, you could tell he was really scared to talk about it. He was, I've got something to say. And a lot of people, you know, what a weight to hold on your shoulders. If you can't talk and share with just even one person. But yeah, I think there's so much more work to be done, and there's a lot of pressure online. You know, these picture perfect, life's amazing, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and it's hard.
Absolutely. So, talk to us a little bit more, Jojo, about the mojo state and how, you know, maybe we're just having like a day where we're experiencing anxiety or low mood, or like a longer period of depression. What are the ways that you recommend? What are the kind of practices and tools that you share that can help people to move into more of a mojo state?
Well, I would say the book has a toolkit at the end of every single chapter, because I could talk about this stuff for weeks. So for me, as someone who's always struggled with anxiety, and I've taken the time to understand where it's, you know, from, letting those feelings come in and trying to understand where they're coming from. So why am I so anxious? Where have I picked up this learned behavior? Because we, you know, it is, we have it to an extent to keep us alive, but a lot of this is learned behavior. I wasn't scared of spiders when I was a baby, you know, it's learned behavior. So actually just taking time to not fight it. So if you feel an anxiety attack coming on, or a really, really heavy, critical, low mood coming on, it's saying, right, I'm not going to fight it, because then it's the fear kicks in and you think I'm losing my mind, or I'm spiraling into the darkest depression. And that's, you just kind of, for me personally, and all those that I've interviewed over the years, you kind of have to let it sit for a bit. And that's why I think tools like mindfulness are really useful, because your head can be so noisy. You know, those times where your mind just won't switch off. And sometimes in mindful practice, you just have to sit and let that come in. For a lot of people, an issue is that we're so driven and everything's so fast paced, and we don't have our minds, you know, we're not ready for this level of technology and this overload. So we can become scrambled. I know I've been there, where I've been dreaming about work and content in my sleep because I've not switched off. I've been working too late. I've been on the screen too late. So that's impacted my sleep. So actually having a solid bedtime routine where you have a nice bath with essential oils. You put the screens in the other room or away for the hour or 2 hours, 3 hours if you can before. Speaking kindly to yourself, affirmations, and having that kind of positive mindset, like motivational podcasts, which was partly why I started my own, just to be able to help. And people have written to say, I was on a really tough trek, or I was having a really bad week, and that podcast gave me a lift. Because one, it's reminding them they're not alone. We all have this mind, and it's not our fault we have this mind that's really complicated. And it has all these thoughts, and we have this fear side of our brain. So it's not our fault, and we have this mind that does have an ego. So we compare naturally to other people, and we get all these thoughts that we're not good enough, or who do we think we are to do whatever we're doing. And the more we talk about that, then the less they do spiral, because you can almost go, oh, my mind, what's the deal? That's funny that it's doing that, and try and make light of it. Another tip I would say, I use music a lot, and also on Instagram stories, if people are having a tough day, I'll get their favourite song and I'll sing down on stories to them if they physically don't feel able to put the music on and dance around. But for me, sort of fake it till you make it. So even if I'm having a day where I'm really anxious, or if it's that time of the month and I'm really studying PMS, and I had a great meeting this morning about our hormones. So even if it's those few days where, with the hormones and the negativity really kicks in, fake it till you make it, turn the music up, dance around the kitchen, and try and give yourself a bit more self-care, a bit of self-compassion. That really
exactly.
Really helps me. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, jumping in there. But that's a really key point about, our hormones and the cyclical nature of those. This is a key aspect of living unbound, is to kind of harness the power of our cyclical nature rather than kind of making it wrong and expecting ourselves to feel the same every day. That's not how we work. So just kind of recognizing, okay, there are certain days of the month where I do feel these different emotions are coming up, or maybe I don't feel as kind of like positive, or like I want to be with people as much. Just recognizing that in itself is really powerful, isn't it?
I think it's really important, because people would say to me, it's that thing that take a pill, just go on the pill and sort that out. And I really wanted to do it the natural way. So looking into things like reflexology, how much sugar we have, which can really impact, how much caffeine, and processed food, plastic. I've been learning today about the impact plastic can have on our hormones. So if you heat up a microwave meal in that week, obviously stimulants like alcohol, caffeine, that can really, it's not the best combination when we're feeling fragile. It can make things worse. Obviously exercise, it's a natural antidepressant, the most underused one. I think there's a fine line though, because there will be some people just relying on exercise and they can overdo it, and your body needs time to unwind, and you don't want to tamper with the stress hormones too much. But yeah, it's all about balance, isn't it? Lots of vegetables, fruit, your diet, and there are some foods that have been proven to really, have an impact on our anxiety levels. So there's so many things we can do. It's just talking about it. More education, but also just encouraging, because it's very easy to make excuses. I don't have time for self-care. Well, why don't you have time for self-care? Could you ask a friend? Could you actually say to your partner, look, I need to schedule in time for me, rather than just accepting that, no, the bedtime routine, or you've got too much work to do. Well, actually, to perform at our best, to be able to use our imagination, to be creative, we need to take time out and to recharge. It's essential for our brains to be working at their best potential. So actually, you're doing yourself a disservice by saying, oh, I don't have time, I can't make time. We can all make time.
And it, sometimes it's easier to think, it's easier to do it myself than to ask somebody else to do something, or to make that space for yourself. But actually, you say, we do ourselves a disservice when we don't make time for self-care, but we also do kind of our loved ones a disservice as well, because, you know, then we're trying to do everything from this place where we're not feeling full up and energized. So it's a win-win for everyone when we prioritize ourselves, isn't it?
It really is. And I put road rage down to a lack of self-care. You know, people are so angry, but they're probably not having that time for, you know, I always say, don't wait for someone else to buy you a bunch of flowers. Go and buy your own box of chocolates, your own bunch of flowers. Book that treatment and just say, look, or even something as simple as, I'm in the bath, like Hubs did. I was really proud of my Hubs last week because he said, I'm going to go for a bath and close the door for half an hour and no one's to come in. And I was good for you, because he's the sort of person that always is a perfectionist around the house, always has to be on the go. And I said, well, what would happen if you didn't, you know, clear out that shelf and you didn't deep clean tonight? What would really happen? Why don't you just put yourself? But it's his up, and then it's challenging. We'll just look at your upbringing. You know, they grew up in a guest house, so it was fast. His family line are always running around, washing cars. So you can understand where that's come from. And of course, it's great to have a bit of that in you. But I think there's a balance, you know, and it's a different day now. We're busier in different ways. So lower your standards. You know, we have to raise our standards on some things and lower our standards on other things.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my goodness, so much we could dive into, but I'm conscious
all day.
I know I could talk about it with you, Jojo, all day, but I just wanted to ask you about your book. You mentioned it a bit earlier, and just saying there's a lot more tips and there's a lot more guidance in there. But I'm just really curious, as a writer myself and someone who works for a lot of women who are writing books, what made you decide to write your book?
I think the success of the blog, because it was resonating with so many people. Actually, it was readers that said, please write a book. I've always wanted to write a book. I've always, and I've got ideas for other ones. I've started my next one. So I figured I had made enough mistakes to fill a book, because I wanted my first book to be non-fiction, and I wanted it to be a kind of aspirational piece that would be a toolkit. So it's been described as a warm hug, a book that you can dip in and out of as well, because I know how busy people are. And I think it was Hay House that said to me, you should put the toolkits in. And it was great, because everyone comments it's so nice to have those toolkits just to refer to, if they're, especially on those times, those days where you're struggling. It's just nice to be able to offer that up to people and have more resources for people. And it's very, very honest book. You know, it's very honest, and the first couple of chapters are quite heavy. Talk about acceptance, which is a huge topic in mental health, and we talk about taking things personally, the mental health of other people. So talk very openly about that. But yeah, I had so many stories in my head that I just thought, let's just create these 14 chapters that are really gonna give people something to think about and just remind them of what's important in life, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I love what you said there. You felt that you'd made enough mistakes to fill a book, and I just think that's perfect, because sometimes people feel I've got to have it all together, and if I'm going to write a book, you know, it's got to be showcasing kind of the good stuff and, you know, my knowledge and my wisdom, but that comes through making mistakes, doesn't it? That's how we learn.
That is how we learn, that's how we grow, that's how we change, if we're open to it and we push the ego aside and we say, oh, that was, I could have handled that better. And I think when we're growing, back to the mojo thing, is when we're not growing and we're in a place where we're stagnant, it's not good for our mojo, because we're lacking excitement, we're lacking a bit of spice of life, a bit of variety. It becomes very life on autopilot, Groundhog Day. And that's not good for our mental health. We need routine, but we also need to be in that spontaneous place where we're, you know, we're living, we're just doing things, and we're not overthinking. We're just we're dancing, we're learning, we're creating, we're playing, we're living.
Yeah, love that. Love that. Oh, and I just loved what you said earlier about on Instagram stories. If someone's feeling down and they don't feel able to kind of sing and dance themselves, you will do it for them, like a surrogate dance break. I love that. So if anyone's in need of that,
Honestly, I love getting advice. I've been doing it for a good few years now, and I just love it to be able to help boost people's mojo and give them a little bit of a mojo injection. I think positivity, what people will say to me a lot is positivity is infectious, right? It spreads.
yeah,
So I think what helps with that is when we don't take ourselves too seriously. So it just gives people a chance to go, oh, and I'll say to them, have a laugh on me, That's good.
yeah,
If it makes you feel better, great.
yeah,
Let's do this.
yeah.
And I need to do that. We all need to do that. There's been times that I've taken things too seriously, too personally, and the ego comes into play, and you feel the world's against you, and people can say things, and that impacts us all. But what helps me is just to take a step back and go, right, okay, let's put this into proportion.
Yeah, yeah,
People politics and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
Don't let spirals. Step back and chill out.
Yeah, exactly. So important. Not always easy to remember, but so important. Jojo, like I said, I could speak to you for a lot longer about this, but we've come to the end of today's episode. So how can people find out more about you and your work, Jojo? What's the best way for them to do that?
So you can find me on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at Jojo Fraser Mojo. MommyJojo.com is my website. And yeah, I'm on social most days with getting the detoxes into though. And yeah, my website, you can get my book on Amazon, Waterstones, and it's available in Waterstones in Edinburgh if you're tuning in from Edinburgh as well. So yeah.
Perfect. We'll put the links to your website and the book and everything below this video. But thank you so much, Jojo, for joining me today. It's been such a pleasure to have this conversation.
Really enjoyed chatting to you. So thank you for having me.
Oh, great. Thanks so much. And we will see you again soon. Bye.
Bye.